Hi there, my name is Miss Crew McKenzie, and I am a painter that also happens to be a full-time pinup model. Welcome to my channel where we celebrate the beautiful and the creative. Come with me as I teach you how to make creativity out of mediums like charcoal, paint, makeup, and hair. Today we'll be painting a peony. These are the paints that I use, so I'll go ahead and list them on the overlay of this video, along with the main brush that I will be using for this. I also will be using my Ordorless paint thinner. Okay, first things first, I take that deep magenta and I go ahead and sketch out the full shape of the peony. This is just so I can see what's going on. It does not have to be perfect. This is just kind of what I do. After I have that shape down, I take that same magenta and I go in with my darks. I personally like to work from dark to light. It just helps me see everything better. And it gives me just like a clearer understanding of what's going on. So I'm going ahead and I'm putting in all those darks, those initial darks first with that magenta. And this layer is very thin. I go back and forth with the magenta and the paint thinner just so I can get a first thin layer. Next, I take my pale rose blush and I go ahead and put in those brighter tones, but it's like the mid-tones. It's not quite the highlights just yet or the brightest of the colors that I'm going to get to, but it is the mid-tone, I would say, between the highlight and the deepest, darkest color, which is, for me in this piece, my magenta. So I'm going ahead and blocking in those colors as well. I'm just following the reference, not doing my own thing, just doing what I see. Next, I take that pale rose blush again, I dip it into my white, and I kind of go towards where the light is pretty much. And again, this is not necessarily our highlight color, but it is getting on the brighter end for the reflective light, okay? So you just kind of see me blocking those in as well. Again, this does not have to be perfect. I know it's going to look crazy at the very beginning, but if you just keep moving, it'll come together. Okay, so for me, I like to work from largest to smallest. That just makes everything easier so I don't get overwhelmed with detail. So as I block in the larger petals, now you see me moving closer towards the center where the petals on the peony get a little bit smaller and kind of close together. I'm blocking in the shadow parts of that, not necessarily the highlights just yet, just so I, again, can see what's going on. You can get kind of confused, especially when it comes to floral paintings, because it's a lot going on. So now I'm just going back and forth with my lights and darks. It's very important, in my personal opinion, to just paint what you see, draw what you see, and try to practice restraint and not control the outcome of the final piece. And just trust your abilities, trust your eye, and know that this is paint. So if there is a quote-unquote accident or a mess up or something that you don't even like, you can go ahead and paint over it. It's fine. It will be okay. So that's what you see me doing here, kind of going back and forth. Speaking of mistakes, this next part that you see me doing right now is very important because I kind of missed a petal when it came to creating the first initial shape of the peony. So I'm kind of just sketching that in, and you see me doing it with my lightest color just because I don't want to go too dark and mess up the whole piece and distract myself. So that's what I did there. I'm going ahead and cleaning off my brush here with the paint thinner, because now I'm going to go in with my highlights. Now we're starting to get into the highlights, which is my titanium white. Now for me, I would recommend, if you are doing something like this, which in my opinion is kind of like a late beginner, early intermediate stage of painting, I would go ahead and at this stage start with the background. The only reason why I did not is because I was just all over the place. Now I'm going in with my ultramarine blue, and I'm getting my darkest parts of the floral piece in. A lot of people like to do this very first, but for me, I like to take it slow and build up to my darkest areas. Okay, so now that we have the basic shape and some of the shadows and lights in, I like to go ahead and add some background. It does not have to be perfect. This is just so I can see things a little bit better and clearer and see some of the colors that we already have down against something else, because if it's just with the background, sometimes it's kind of hard to differentiate what color is which and how it's gonna, work with one another. I can't really describe it, but once you start painting and really start practicing, getting into your practice, you'll see what I'm saying. But it's just so much easier when you have something to go off of in the background. So now I'm just adding more darkness. Like I said, I like to build up as much as I can, just so I am not overwhelming myself with the piece. Again, I'm just going back and forth with my lights and my darks and kind of making sure that the things that need to be there, the details that need to be there to kind of communicate that this is a peony, that this is a flower, are there. Certain things like the little tiny petals on the inside, the bulb itself of the peony is very important as well. These are just things that you can sketch in that don't have to necessarily be perfect to communicate that this is what this flower is. This is a very, very, very loose painting that I'm doing. I'm trying to practice getting into loose painting because, in my personal opinion, that makes things a little bit more realistic looking. I come from a background of drawing with pencil and paper as well as tattooing. So with those two mediums, it's really challenging to loosen up sometimes. So I find that practicing very loose paintings really helps me to get more on a realistic and less illustrative looking piece. So this is pretty much what I'm doing. I'm just going back and forth with what I see is missing, making sure that if I'm going to my highlights, my brush is cleaned off completely with the paint thinner, and that's nothing is smushing together or muddying up or anything like that. So that's what you just see me doing here. I'm also adding some little details in the petals that I feel like still would take the piece to the next level. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and finish my background. So I went ahead and cleaned off that big brush that I was using, and I'm just kind of, again, very loosely, not really having anything be too perfect, just kind of sketching in some petals here. The peony's petals are really cool. They're very similar, in my opinion, to chrysanthemum flowers, in that they're wide and funky and just cool to look at. So I'm just kind of sketching some in. Again, it just doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going for a more realistic look. And in nature, nothing is perfect. It's kind of just random and chaotic. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm blocking in the darkest parts of the background, and then I'm going to go ahead with the lightest to define those leaves. So you'll see that here as well. After cleaning off my brush, I dip into the Cadium green and just kind of define those leaves a little bit more. I did clean off my brush because this color is so freaking pretty that I don't want it to be muddied up with any other color. And again, I just want those the shapes of the leaves to be as defined as possible so you can understand that this is what this is without it being too detailed. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I hope that you try this piece in your downtime and tell me how it goes. Have fun and happy creating.